Hello, and welcome to the Alpha Male Podcast. This podcast is going to be a little bit different than our normal format. You see, I already recorded an episode on hunting, and I went and listened to it when it uploaded, and the audio was not great. Less than stellar, as we might say in the Marine Corps. So I decided to go back to the old school way without all the editing and everything, and just talk into the microphone and upload that. And when that one gets uploaded, hopefully I'll delete the old one and this will replace it. So shooting from the hip as a metaphor. If you want to listen to the bio, you can listen to one on any of the other episodes. I'll just say first and foremost, I'm a Christian. I don't apologize for that. It comes out in everything that I do, and this podcast hopefully is no different. With that, I'll talk about hunting as it pertains to manliness. Let me start off by recalling a couple of stories. Are you familiar with the term memory burn, where a memory is burned into your mind? You can see it like a movie playing when you close your eyes, or even when you don't close your eyes. I have a memory like that from when I was a boy in the rural south of Virginia. I was hunting on behind my uncle's land, an area that had just been logged. I was young. I don't remember how young, but I have the picture. I'm going to guess 14. My uncle had this old archaic muzzleloader musket. If you don't know what that is, the old school guns where you pour the powder down the barrel and you put the patch in the ball or the mini ball and you ram it down with a ramrod. Put a cap on the back, cock the hammer, fire it, you get one shot. So that's what I'm dealing with here. I go out by myself. My uncle was kind enough to loan me that rifle. He mentored me a lot growing up, my Uncle Will. I went, I don't remember if it was early morning or late at night, but I remember it being cold because I remember seeing this buck coming across this clear-cut area. And I remember seeing the breath coming out of its nose. I remember seeing it walk and move. And I remember that I didn't think I was going to get a standing still shot on this buck. As I said, this area had been logged and there were some fell over trees and some still standing trees. And it was walking through the area and I had an opportunity where I would get a shot at him. But I didn't think he was going to stop, so I had to hit him moving. So I had to hit this animal moving with a single shot muzzle-loading rifle. So I raised this rifle, took careful aim, pulled the trigger, dropping that hammer. I remember thinking it was a good hit on that animal. At least I think I remember that. I remember seeing that animal take off running. I remember seeing him running, but his head falling down. So he was running pretty much flat out, very fast, but with his head slumping, and falling down because I assume from blood loss. And he runs and smacks into this tree. And that was the end of that deer. I still remember that memory burn in my mind. I can't even say honestly that I remember my first kiss, but I remember that. Let me tell you about the story of another hunt, a much more recent hunt. As you've heard if you've listened to my bio before, I'm very blessed to say that I've been a professional big game hunter and guide. Hunted professionally for things like buffalo and elk and fallow deer and axis. All manner of beasts I've slain and been blessed. Wolves and bear. This hunt is a buffalo hunt. I was guiding for a wonderful gentleman. This was an archery hunt, bow and arrow, for a bison. Now I don't think I have to tell you that a male bison is a big animal, up to 2,000 pounds. I don't remember exactly how big this one was. Impossible to weigh him with any equipment that we had. But he was the alpha male of this herd. He was the alpha male. He was the big, in-charge male. And we had gotten on this herd earlier that day, and they had been spooked. So they were a little bit weary and they had run off. So my job as the guide to go ahead and scout and try and find this herd while the hunter followed behind me. This area was beautiful green pasture mixed with wooded areas. So a patchwork of small fields, like a checker pattern almost, of small fields and forest and small fields and forest. I would walk up ahead, up and down these rolling hills in this beautiful weather and look for these beasts. Well, after a time, I don't know how many fields we looked in, but I was able to locate that herd and locate the alpha male within the herd. Now, sometimes when you spook a buffalo, they'll run off. Sometimes, and this is what happened this time, the alpha male will stand in front of the herd facing you to protect the herd. And that's what happened this time. Now, with a bow and arrow, you want a broadside shot, meaning you want the animal facing sideways to you so you can get a good clean shot on that animal. We did not have that shot. That buffalo knew we were there. So we waited, we sat, we were patient. We waited what seemed like a long time. And by God's grace, it's starting to rain. It starts to rain pretty hard. It's coming down. And the sound of that, especially when you're used to the still quiet of the forest, the sound of that rain beating down on dry leaves can seem quite loud. Not only did it mask our noise, but it masked our scent, I'm sure, to some degree. So we get down on hands and knees, go into this micro-terrain, this little gully beside this hill, on our hands and our knees, and we crawl up to these bison, waiting patiently, on hand and knee, crawling up this little hill. That was one of my jobs as the guide, to estimate the distance to these bison, and I estimated it somewhere in the 30-ish something yard range, and that was the range that my hunter felt comfortable taking the shot, which is a decent shot for archery. When that buffalo, by God's grace, presented itself broadside, and I called out the distance, the archer fired the shot, and I remember, again, memory burn. I remember seeing that arrow fly through the air. I remember seeing the fletchings sink deep into the good kill zone of that giant beast. I remember thinking, that's a good hit. I remember watching that arrow plunge deep. I remember that buffalo take off. I remember that buffalo running in a big concentric circle, spewing blood. So much blood, difficult to convey in audio. So much blood, it seemed like he was painting the forest floor red, like a carpet of blood. I remember seeing that, and I remember seeing him going in smaller and smaller concentric circles. And I remember looking at that beast and seeing him and the strength go out of him and seeing him collapse on the ground. I remember seeing the other buffalo looking at him, dismayed that their leader was now no more. I remember taking out that animal's heart, taking out a bison heart, and it being about the size of my head, just the size of that beast, and turning that into nutrition, cutting that up for meat, for subsistence. So those are the few of the hunting stories that I wanted to share with you in the beginning, before we get into the main body of the topic. Before I do, just a quick aside. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Leave a review of this podcast. Whatever platform you're listening to on, try and scroll down and see if you can hit a star review or write a quick review. If you want to check out more, you can go to goodshepherdtraining.com, goodshepherdtraining.com. That's all I'll say for now. We'll get into the body of this topic. Now, hunting. Why is it one manly, and why is it important? Why is it beneficial to a man? I'd say there's several facets to that. The number one facet I would say is that hunting gets you outside. It gets you into God's beautiful creation. It seems like a lot of time in this modern world we go from box to box to box. The box that we live in, the box that we sleep in, the box that we drive to work in, to go to another box, get back in our box and drive home to our other box. Little boxes. Stepping outside into a world without borders, without walls, without a ceiling, with trees, where there are no straight lines. Seeing that beauty. As it is written in Psalms 19, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows us his handiwork. Getting out there and enjoying that is good. Good for you. A more natural way of life. Also, I'd say it's beneficial to get away from the constant clicks and whistles and dings of your social media and your phone and your texts and your emails and all that stuff. To get away from that, to step away from that. To step away from a world wherever you want something, you can go open the fridge or go to the store where you have what you have on you and that's it. To get a little hot, to get a little cold, to get a little dirty. I think that's good for a man. So that's one, and just one facet. And you don't have to hunt to get that, but it certainly gives you that when you hunt. Another one, another facet is testing yourself as a man. You see, when you go out against something like an ungulate, like a deer, like an elk, something like that, like a bison, something that's been hunted for thousands of years, something that is trying to survive and you're trying to kill it. Testing your skills. Like David says to Solomon, be strong. Be strong and courageous. Or as he says in 1 Kings, be strong and prove yourself a man. Proving yourself a man, pitting yourself against that wild animal, I think is important to manliness. Man versus prey. The next man versus predator. As I alluded to, I have slain bear and wolf and coyote. An animal that, let's just say, makes its living, as it were, hunting and killing. And you hunt and kill it. The Bible says that David is a man after his own heart. And there's many, many aspects of that. That's to be a whole podcast series. But it's also recorded for us that David slew predators as a young man. Another thing hunting can do for you, man versus prey, man versus predator, man versus nature. Just being outside, especially if you get somewhere out in the wilderness, can be trying. The closest I've ever come to dying while hunting was not from lions or tigers or bears. It was from walking at night and having lost my flashlight earlier that day, and walking off a cliff and falling and literally almost dying if it wasn't for the hand of God holding me up. I likely would have died out there in that wilderness. Man versus nature, testing yourself, pushing yourself. Another aspect of how this can help in regards to manliness, self-sufficiency. Now, I think it's great that you can go to the store and buy food. I went to the store and bought food today. I also think it's good as a man to be able to grab a weapon, go out in the wilderness, slay a beast, carve it up, and feed yourself and your family and those weaker and less fortunate than you. I think that's a skill that every man ought to have, if he's able. Self-sufficiency. the ability to put meat on the table in good times or bad. It's nice to be able to go to Walmart and buy a whole chicken for whatever it costs now. But what if you can't? Can you still put meat on the table? Another one, if you've listened any length of time to any other podcast, you'll know that I've been a professional gunfighter warrior for most of my adult life. Mastering a weapon, being able to take a tool, whether it's a rifle or a shotgun or a bow and arrow or a blowgun or a rock, and kill something and eat it. Mastering a weapon, mastering a tool. Another thing it teaches you, there's much more to hunting than just a shot, than just a kill. That's part of it. And I really enjoy that part of it, and I don't apologize for it. But a lot of the work happens after that animal is down. Being able to take a dead animal on the ground and gut it and cut it up and carve it and butcher it is another skill, is a tremendous amount of work and skill in butchering and taking meat off the bone and parting an animal out, especially if you're in the backcountry, and hiking it out on your back. So hiking can be part of hunting, both hiking in and exploring and hiking out with the meat on your back. Not to mention all the skills that go in with butchering. One of the things I like about hunting is making my own steaks and my own sausage and my own ground meat, my own biltong and jerky. Sometimes if I get several deer and an elk or whatever, I would take the majority of one deer and turn the whole thing into jerky. Or biltong, if you don't know what that is. It's like jerky's big brother. Big hunks of preserved meat that you can eat without refrigeration. And you can season them however you want. You don't have to get the crap that's at the store that's covered in sugar and preservatives. You can make it yourself with salt and vinegar or ghost pepper or teriyaki or whatever you want to do to it. Garlic salt, whatever you want to put on it, you can do that. You can control that. And that's a big part of hunting. Now, I'll have to mention a little bit of what you may encounter when you tell people, if you hunt, you already know this, but if you're going to get into hunting, people that object to hunting, they'll say, oh, going out and shooting a deer with a rifle, how hard can that be? And I guess I would say to that, the easiest hunt I've ever been on has been harder than going to McDonald's and ordering a Big Mac. If that person eats meat, then somebody killed that cow or that chicken too. They just paid somebody else to do it. So I don't see how morally they can have an objection to it. Those animals that you kill lived a far better life, in my opinion, out in the wild, dying a clean death, than the ones that are raised shoulder to shoulder in their own feces in the modern industrial agriculture complex. I'm not saying that you have to hunt to be a man or to be an alpha male, but I'm saying plenty of alpha males have done it. How about George Washington? How about John F. Kennedy? Theodore Roosevelt? Ernest Hemingway? Just to name a few, many, many others. You may be saying to yourself, oh, I can't hunt because. And I would say, check yourself and see if those aren't beta male feelings. I'd say perhaps it's time to take off the skinny jeans, put down the soy latte, grab a pair of boots, a canteen, and a weapon, and head out to the wilderness and kill something and consume it. As an alpha male, instead of thinking why you can't do something, try and figure out a way that you can do something. Now we think of, the modern hunter, and we think of the pioneer hunters of American past, how the people that went west, the people that settled America were great hunters and trappers, and many of them were. But you have to realize when they came here, they most likely weren't. The English and French hunters and trappers that came here and went west, many of them came from cities in Europe. They may have had no knowledge of hunting, whether they were peasants or serfs, whatever you want to call them. Maybe at some time they had poached the king's deer. I don't doubt that was possible, but they didn't come from families of hunters. They learned it when they got here. In fact, many of the original settlers of Jamestown died and starved to death in a nation full of game because they didn't know how to hunt. But you can learn now when times are good. If they could do it, you can certainly do it. So stop looking for reasons. This doesn't just go for hunting, it goes for general alpha maleness of why you can't do something, and try and figure out ways that you can do it. I'm big on guns. If you know my background, you know that. But there's more ways to hunt than just with a gun. If that's not for you, or you might legitimately not be able to do that. For instance, if you're not yet 18 and your parents don't allow guns in the house, honor your father and mother. But there's other ways to hunt. I killed my first bear with a bow when I was 16. Stop thinking about ways you can't do it and figure out how you can do it. My suggestion would be don't start with big game. It can be kind of taxing. You can go out a lot and not get anything. I would say start out with small game. And I would start out with something that has little to no regulation, because regulations can be kind of confusing. Obviously, obey all local laws, all your fish and game laws. One place you may want to look at starting is Eurasian collared doves. If you're here in America, they're an invasive species, which happen to be delicious. And they tend to have pretty liberal or no limits on them, and very liberal or no seasons on them. Eurasian collared doves, you can look those up. Very delicate bird. You can clean those and breast them out with just your bare hands. You can just rip them apart. They're so delicate. You don't even need a knife. There's many ways to hunt them. Whether that's going to Walmart and for a little over $100 getting a single shot shotgun, or whether it's doing it with archery or doing it with snares. I've caught and successfully snared birds with just fishing string. So you don't need a lot. I've hunted birds successfully with a blowgun. I've hunted other animals successfully with a rock. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that because if I can do it, you can learn how to do it. I'm very blessed with these talents. I don't have anything that God didn't first give me. Whatever talent, whatever discipline it is, God gave it to me, and I'm thankful for that. But you can get out there and try it too. So before thinking why you can't do it, think of how you can do it. So give some serious thought to getting out there, killing something, and consuming it like a man. I guess with that, guys, I'll say thanks for listening to this episode of the Alpha Male Podcast. If you want to check out more, go to goodshepherdtraining.com. Again, goodshepherdtraining.com if you're a more visual person. If you want to support the podcast, these are free to put out, but sadly, they're not free to produce. So if you want to support financially, you can go to goodshepherd.com, scroll to the bottom. There's a Patreon link on there. You can also contact me on there if you would like to. There's plenty of pictures and stuff on there. For this episode, I did something special. I uploaded a bunch of pictures of that hunt that I talked about when I was a young boy with the muzzleloader, with the musket, the buffalo hunt. Got a picture on there of that. I have a picture of the first successful hunt that I was able to and blessed to guide my wife on for her first big game hunt of Texas doll sheep. And some other pictures that are on there. You can sign up on Patreon for $1 and see those pictures if you want to support the podcast and give $1. I'd be very humbled by that. I'm very humbled that anybody listens. As a thanks for listening to this, I'll throw in a tactical tip at the end, or a practical tip, however you want to quantify it. But there's a soap, and it's called Zote, Z-O-T-E. It's made in Mexico, and it's made the right way from animal fat, the way soap used to be made before they started making it with harsh chemicals. And you can get Zote, and you can wash your clothes with it. And I think it's for clothes, but I wash my skin with it, and I don't have any issues. But the cool thing about Zote is it's made with citronella. Citronella is a natural bug repellent. So it's got that going for it if you're going out scouting or hunting or hiking or fishing or pretty much anything. So you get bug repellent when you wash your clothes or wash your skin if you're going out in the woods, and that's pretty cool. And that'll be the tip for the day. With that, guys, thanks for listening and have a blessed day.